Welcome, everybody, to the collegesoccernews.com podcast. I'm your host, Adam Zundel. Pleased to be joined now by the head coach at New Hampshire, Marc Hubbard. Coach, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here today.
No problem. I got this call. I couldn't turn it down. So thank you very much for the offer.
Well, of course. I mean, off to another great start and another great season. But let's kind of go backwards if we can. Just tell me about getting bit by the coaching bug. Obviously, a player and played the game your whole life. When did you feel like this was going to be a profession for you?
Yeah, it wasn't something that I was going to school for per se, but so I grew up. My story is I grew up in New Hampshire, grew up in this town, was a ball boy for teams in early 90s when Mike Noonan was the head coach, who's now at Clemson. So it was just kind of through playing in my playing days and being exposed to it, obviously that naturally kind of falls into you somehow. Ended up going away for school at Colgate, and then played a little USL afterwards, but in between those seasons came back and started helping out the UNH as a sort of a second type of assistant. And then halfway through my season down at Wilmington, I got a call from Rob offering the first assistant position, and then just sort of made a life choice to come back up here. Still was able to play a little bit locally with the USL New Hampshire Phantoms at the time, and also get my grad degree as well while being the assistant here. So, and then it just sort of, the more you're in it, the more you want to work at it and become good at it. And then 5 years had the opportunity to be a head coach at Southern New Hampshire, and then made my way back. So at Colgate, I was a political science major. September 11th had happened during that time. I had a little bit of an international relations focus. So that was interesting with an education minor. So coming out of school, I wasn't sure if I was going to play pro soccer, work down at Wall Street, so it just sort of naturally happened. And being a part of sport is always something I wanted to do.
What are some of the, is there anything that you can take from political science or whatever, any of those components that you can apply that you find yourself kind of using and relying on, even though it seems like a world away?
Yeah, I think at Colgate, they definitely hammer in sort of critical thinking skills and being able to manage people and personalities, and classroom size pretty small, so they're very discussion heavy based classes and courses. And I think through that, you learn a little bit about, I guess, psychology and people and how to deal with them and communicate properly. And I think that filters down into how I coach and manage today.
When you're the assistant at New Hampshire there in the first go around, you talked about making the move to Division II and becoming the head coach. And there's a certain, you could either probably continue to be an assistant and maybe continue those connections to find a Division I head coaching job, but you chose to go to the Division II route. Tell me about that decision-making, that decision process that, I know you don't take it with the next step in mind necessarily, but it's a career choice. And so tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, there is, I think early, each year as an assistant, you're kind of wondering what's going to happen and how is this going to go. You can't stay in that role for forever. So I think I was weighing even some Division III options, like putting my name in the hat for that. But I was lucky because I think like locally, Southern New Hampshire opened up. I didn't have to physically move, and it was at a time where I think I was ready to have some autonomy and kind of move on and run my own program. So I think a little bit of luck and timing, and we kind of expressed that even with how we play. Like, you kind of create it, but sometimes it's the way the ball bounces, especially in the tournament, is what we've learned.
We have seen I mean, more than a handful of Division II coaches successfully transition to Division I, probably more so in any other sport that I can think of right off. I mean, Division II is now a very viable option for aspiring Division I head coaches. Why do you think that is the case?
I mean, I think for me, going from a school like University of New Hampshire to Southern New Hampshire University was a completely different academic profile and model than Colgate or UNH. So it definitely taught me to think a little bit more outside the box in terms of recruiting. And I think that's always stuck. It definitely sticks with, I think, the Division II coaches who are successful in Division I today. You find a niche in terms of you want to create as successful of a program as possible, but you can't just go out and compete against Division I schools for the best domestic kids that are great students. So for us, we had to be a little bit creative at SNU to, I think when I got there were like 14 players. So we really had to work hard to build depth right away, which wasn't great for the first couple of years. So you're like an injury or two away from obviously that impacting your success. But you're finding niches. So international recruiting is a way that you can compete or get kids over Division I schools based on eligibility or just not combing through the proper channels. And I think over my 7-8 years there, we're able to develop a lot of relationships and do a lot of digging and understanding of levels and how that translates to Division I. And then obviously being able to come back, find those pockets. But we're still doing the same thing we were doing at Southern New Hampshire. It's just a little bit of a wider net in terms of the type of players. But I always tell people we're not going down. And I'll use Clemson as an example. We're not going to go down to Montverde and compete against Clemson for those kids, or even Atlanta United type deal. We still have to be creative domestically as to the players that we find. And a big part of our success now has been from finding guys who I think are untapped domestically and developing them within the program. And after a couple of years, they're now playing a stronger role, and people are wondering where this guy come from. But you can't replenish the well every single year. You can find 2 or 3 impact guys within your class, but there has to be 2 or 3 guys within your program that steps up as well if you want to sustain the success.
I suspect you're talking about Hansen a little bit, and we'll talk about him maybe a little bit later in terms of those types of players that you found and developed.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so then let's talk about the move back to New Hampshire, and I mean, goodness, in your hometown. But what, as you coming off a national championship, you're running at a high level there. You probably have to say, hey, what is your commitment as an institution to wanting to compete at a high level? And so what was it about, everything that it is there. So what was it about it that said, I can go and be successful at this position as well?
Well, it wasn't an easy choice. We're coming off of, we were flying at SNU. I think for 5 years, we hadn't lost to a Division I program. And, we obviously weren't playing them regular season, but any type of exhibition or spring stuff, we were playing them and didn't lose. So we were in a good spot to kind of keep going there. And, but I think you reach a point where motivationally you need a new challenge or sort of a fresh start personally to sort of reinvigorate yourself and not get too comfortable. And I think that's important. And the opportunity to come back to my hometown and try and put New Hampshire on the national map and kind of turn UNH into a soccer school is something that's always weighed on me. It's always been something, even when I was a player and we were playing ODP back in the day when that was viable. I think we would go down and try and compete against Virginia or Eastern New York or those type of things. And it was the same old story, chip on the shoulder and defend and do what you can to try and get a result, but you're basically just getting passed around the entire time. And I think for us, putting New Hampshire on the national map and is something that continues to motivate us to this day.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of things there, and I know that you've mentioned making New Hampshire a soccer school has been a consistent theme of yours, and it's not like this, this season is any sort of an anomaly. This has been building, and you have been successful for a number of years, making the NCAA tournament 4 straight years. When you have a chance, and I know we're in the middle of the season, I know you got a big game coming up tomorrow, but are you able to kind of take some snapshots of some moments where you felt validated and vindicated about this? I mean, I know that 2017 season was very magical, and making it, for the first time and playing Indiana so well, but are there any particular moments where you felt like we've got this thing going right?
Yeah. I mean, I think right away we had a group of guys that were very motivated to right the ship and work hard. So I was lucky to have it when I think I got in April. So you don't have any time to recruit. I think I brought one goalie, a backup goalie over from Southern New Hampshire, and I had recruited someone at the showcase like June or July and got him in for August, Alex Valencia from San Jose Earthquakes. And that was pretty much it. And we kind of brought in some extra guys into preseason to fire up the roster per se. But I think right from then, having 10 plus win seasons, and you could kind of see the building blocks, and that it wasn't going to sort of happen overnight. We just didn't have the right amount of depth in certain spots to kind of withstand the college season. But for sure, to be able to get into the NCAA tournament in 2017. And then we were lucky enough, obviously, to draw Dartmouth in the second round. So you're not like traveling a big distance, and we had already played them. And so it was some familiarity there, and it was a great game, and we were able to kind of grind that out. And then we were happy to go to Indiana and showcase ourselves. And I thought we did a great job of showing who we were and what we're about. And then that sort of elevates sort of the expectations of the group and gives them a little taste of what's needed. And going forward, we've just, the ball hasn't bounced our way completely in tournament time and drawn some bad luck, I think. But I think right now the expectation is we need to get to the Final Four. We need to get to the College Cup. And obviously, in the COVID year, we felt we had a great opportunity to be able to do that. And it's very unlucky last week of the season with COVID and getting a red card in the first round game down there. So that just fuels us even more, I think, this year on a short summer to come in and prove to ourselves and to others that we can do what we say we want to do.
I noticed the message on the team photo, delayed, not denied. So that seems to be right in line with what you're saying there. How consistent of a message is that to the group?
I mean, every year we create a new message that we put on the back of our practice jerseys, and something that get a sign, and we put it up in our locker room. So everything visually, you can kind of see all of the messages from every single year as you're walking out of the locker room. So you can kind of see the gradual sort of message and what the growth of the program and what that means. And I think it's very consistent to, our goals, and that it's like, we're going to keep working towards it. It's not taken away from us per se last year, but it's definitely wasn't completely in our hands, and you got to sort of trust the process and understand that our time will come and keep working towards it.
There's a lot going to be into this one as I kind of ramble through it, but bear with me. As your record goes and the unbeaten streak continues, how do you keep it one game at a time and focus on that and not let this streak or any of the outside, influences that might be part of it? How do you keep those away? But also part of that is you only get a certain number of chances to be on a team that could be this special, that could be this much fun, that could have this level of success. So how do you go through all that process of embracing but ignoring and staying focused? How do you manage all of those things?
It's a daily discussion, that's for sure. I think over the course of time, you develop a routine or a process that you trust. So especially when there's 2 games a week, schedule, you're going right from moving on right after the game and not sort of relishing that and taking too much time to take a deep breath, and your mentality is to get ready for the next one. So immediately in the huddle after the game, that's what we're talking about, and we're being critical of ourselves and what we could do better within that game. So I think trying to stay as humble as possible and understand that we haven't put together our best 90 minutes yet, and we haven't been fully healthy since our opening game, gives us some hope that we can continue to improve and focus on the next performance. And we're coming off of a performance midweek that we were not happy about, and though you try and not tie or lose games to kind of reset yourself or try to give your group that moment of like, oh, this is, you have to focus. No, you can't not bring your best stuff every game. So like even when we were winning, like you try and find moments to say, all right, like, we did this well, but we could be better here, and we need to apply that. And I think that pushes us towards just focusing towards the next game and not thinking too far ahead as to what we could accomplish. Obviously, as a staff, we mentioned seeds and RPIs and buys. We're not in a conference where we're consistently in the top 5 RPI, where you can slip or you're going to have a schedule ahead of you naturally that's going to keep your RPI in a high place. So we talk about that all the time, and I think pushing towards doing well in conference and hosting and putting yourself in positions to host in the conference tournament is important, but also equally, if not more important, is to put yourself in position to host in the NCAA tournament. So that's something that we've been stressing and wanting to work towards.
We mentioned that you got a big one coming up tomorrow, and of course America East the rest of the way in terms of your schedule. But what are you liking about the way that your team is playing? I know you're not thrilled with the draw the other day, but what are you liking about your team and that you feel confident about, pretty much every time the ball rolls out?
I mean, COVID was positive for us in a way, as we kind of got ahead of it with our group in terms of extra years of eligibility and having these guys, some guys come back. And so we knew from a long time ago that this team was going to be, with who we had committed or coming in, was going to be a really deep team. And so that's what we're really excited about, is like our depth and how guys have responded and stepped up in certain scenarios this year when guys have gone down. So we know that we have a lot of flexibility if something happens within the game based off situations that have been presented this year, where guys can be moved into different spots, and we won't sort of lose any momentum. And I think this group has shown that it's still defensively stingy, which has always been a hallmark of our program in terms of collective defending and organization and taking pride in shutting teams out. But we also have scoring from multiple players. So having that balance on both sides with the depth, I think, gives us a good opportunity to accomplish our goals.
I alluded to it before, and maybe I was off base, but when you talked about having some players and finding some players domestically and develop them, I mentioned Bridger Hansen. Was I right there, or was there somebody else on the roster?
Bridger got here in January, so that's not someone that came in as an 18-year-old and spent 2 or 3 years developing. I think that sort of the one big name was Josh Bauer, who graduated last year, who was a Mac Herman guy and now playing for Atlanta United too. He was someone that, a New Hampshire kid that wasn't sure he wanted to play Division I, and then had good athletic attributes in redshirt his first year, and then went on to have a good success. So I think there's a few guys in our roster this year that are like that. And then obviously we have some guys that we've been able to find that can come in 1 or 2 year scenarios that are older and have an impact. And then there's a mixture in between of guys that, that we can bring off the bench or that have been in the system and been able to play a few roles and be versatile for us.
You had already kind of mentioned some of the things that in the NCAA tournament, and you're not shy about articulating those aspirations that you have. As a coach, is it, and I'm sure you've reflected on, you've had the highs at the Division II National Championship, you've had some tough eliminations. Is there anything that you can learn as consistent, or is it just the nature of that one single game, that one single moment that you as a coach have to come to grips with, that you can't coach your way 100% directly to the result?
Yeah, at SNU, at Southern New Hampshire, I feel like we had a talented team in 2013, but the team that was coming back the next year, we thought was more talented, and we still weren't able to, achieve that. So I think it's obviously you got to have talent, you got to have ability to score and ability to defend and have that depth that's there. But there definitely is an element of timing and luck and the way the ball's bouncing in certain ways. So you can control what you can control, have a good deep team, and make sure that they're tactically prepared for the game and rested and mentally in a good spot. And have a good rotation in terms of where you are at with your subs and everything. You can control that as much as you can, but when you get into 90 minutes, it's soccer. So it was even like that for us on Tuesday night. We came out pretty much flying and created a lot of chances in the first 15 or 20 minutes, and the ball, like 6 corners, the ball's bouncing around all over the place, and it just didn't bounce to our player, or it didn't go off one of their guys, or we just couldn't get it in. So we've been in situations where, everything you hit is going into the net. And we've been in positions where you're shooting and you're getting a lot of chances and you just can't. That's the beauty about soccer. It's like, it's a little bit unpredictable that way, and you can always kind of be in the game. But if you can defend and you can be organized and prevent the other team from scoring, then you're always going to be in the game. And if you have enough weapons, then you have a pretty good chance at moving on, especially in November.
Is that difficult as a coach to kind of come to grips with, that you try and do everything, at the end of the day it could be a bounce, could be a call, it could be an injury? I mean, that you kind of, you have to cede control to the game at some point.
The last year of COVID was like great for me, because we went into our guys you couldn't sacrifice anymore. As a college player last year, and like having to be in college and do that was extremely difficult. We were one of the, if not the only team not to get shut down here for a period of time. So we were really proud of that fact. And then a day before we go down for Greensboro to play Kentucky, 3 starters, one gets COVID and traces out another 2 starters. And we're like, all right, like, you can't really explain that. That's just the way it goes. So you go down with a different mentality, and you're finding ways to be creative to sort of get through and maximize minutes down there. And then we got a red card on really our first tackle within the game, 14 minutes in. And then you're like, you're still like, I'm really proud of our effort of how we were able to move it. And some people put on the game and were like, I didn't even know you were a man down. Like, I put it on late, and that type of thing. And that was great. But after that game, you're just like, I didn't have much words to say to the guys, really, anything really to explain it. Sometimes you can go in after a win or a loss and have a few reasons as to what we could have done better, or these moments in the game. But going in after that, there's something that just what really wasn't explainable about it. And sometimes that's life. And that's also part of our jobs, is to sort of mentor these guys and get them ready for the real world. So it's a good way to apply that. And you still got to get up the next day and fight the good fight. So here we are in October, and we're in a good spot, but the pressure continues to mount, and we got to do a great job managing that and still improving upon ourselves and coming out tomorrow ready to go.
Are you feeling that? Are the guys feeling that that kind of pressure, or is that something that you could sense as a coach, that maybe the guys are tight or they're feeling this, or
not completely yet, but I think as you start getting into the elimination parts of the year, like that's something that we'll have to over talk, I think, and make sure we're in a good spot with. I think right now we're just sort of enjoying the moment and understanding that we have ways to go, but we have confidence in ourselves, and we're enjoying how we're playing right now, and kind of taking those moments as they come.
Last one before I let you go. I know so much is made about doing this in your hometown, but tell me, how great is it to be able to have this amount of success right where you grew up? And also, how is the journey of making New Hampshire a soccer school and the environment that you're building there? How is that going?
I think it sort of mimics kind of like where we are in the season. Like, we still have more room to grow. Like, as a program, we've raised over $2.5 million since we've been here. We've put in our own sort of soccer field, and we have rooms to grow there to build that into our own home. We won't move over there until that's officially done. Our team GPA continues to get higher. We had a 3.65 team GPA last year, which is incredible. We do a lot in the community to give back there. So it makes me really proud to do it in my hometown around family and friends. And I have 5 kids of my own we span from 12 to 5. So like they're very ingrained, and I always reach back to my experiences as a youth being around the UNH men's soccer program, and kind of what that did for my development or love of soccer. And we always try to give back and remember the importance of that. So I think the message or the momentum is building with our program, which is great. Obviously, I mean, we made College Soccer News podcast. This is a big, and we've arrived in some form now that we're here, but we're enjoying it. But we still know that it's not easy, and we have more room to grow and a lot to work towards here.
All right, great stuff, Coach. Thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Best of luck to you going forward. We'll be keeping an eye on you.
All right, thanks a lot.